basically, well, I grew up in East LA. Both of my parents, my mother and father, they were involved in drugs and gangs, and they were in and out of prison their whole lives. So my father's mother, my grandmother, she's the one that raised me and my three sisters. And even though we grew up in like a gang environment in a drug infested area in East LA, there was love at home. I was never abused. I was never really hit, punished, anything like that. Um, in school, I would say that I was really bad at school. I had a hard time um, grasping the concept of learning stuff. So I was really bad at school. I I really didn't do well in school. Um, and basically, yeah, man, that's I grew up for the most part in East LA. When I became about maybe 9, 10 years old, my grandmother wanted to get us out of that area and move us to a better area. So we relocated to San Bernardino, and it was a little nicer neighborhood and stuff like that. But mind you, every summer I would go to my mother's house, my grandmother on my mother's side, and there it was in La Puente, Rama Street, and that house, that street is a neighborhood. That's the street that I'm from, the neighborhood I'm from. My family is one of the original ones that started that neighborhood. So I was back and forth from grandmother to grandmother. So I kind of had friends on both sides of the track. And but yeah, I grew up in a loving home, man. There was love there. Even though my parents were absent, me and my sisters were always real tight. And my grandmother, she took us in, and she did the best that she could do with us. So I'm always going to be grateful for that. Well, well, I would say basically, growing up, seeing gangs all around me, and family members that were in gangs, I felt like it was just a natural. It was a natural. It was just a natural process. It was something that just became like naturally. I eased into it. It was basically the thing to do. I had friends, growing up my age, and everybody became from a neighborhood. But just having family members and stuff that were from gangs, it seemed like it was the natural thing to do. So it just came easily to me. Um, yeah, it was just a stepping stone in life, kind of like something that just it was normal to me. It was normal to me. It wasn't as if like I was a black sheep of the family or anything like that. Most of the males in the family were all black sheeps. So yeah, that's I basically got into the neighborhood when I was about 12 years old, maybe a little bit younger. I started off pretty young, just hanging around kids that were a little bit older than me. They kind of took me in and took care of me. I was kind of the baby of the bunch. It was a matter of what neighborhood I was going to become from, whether it was going to be from East LA or from La Puente from my mom's side. And I think it just mattered to right around the time I started like really hanging on the streets, um, that the neighborhood thing just came about. But yeah, it ended up being La Puente. That was the neighborhood that I became from right around the time that I started like getting into little small crimes and just hanging out on the streets with everybody. But yeah, that's kind of how it happened.
At what age did you commit your crime, sir?
The one I'm incarcerated for now, I would say, sheesh, about 19, 20, somewhere around there.
If you wouldn't mind, sir, would you be able to take us there and enlighten us on what was it that happened? What was going on in your life, and what led you to commit this crime, sir?
Well, basically, first of all, I know there's other stories out there, that other people They must have read my transcripts or got public information, and they spun their own theory of a story of basically what the courts either accused me of or what I was convicted of. And a lot of those facts ain't facts at all. And so I'm here to dispute that and to tell you the real version of basically kind of how things transpired and whatnot. Was, I was out there as a kid and hanging out with friends and basically there was a house party happening and a few of us left this house party and we went to a store and to get more beer, and an argument happened between two people, and basically they got into some words were exchanged, and one thing led to another, and a friend of mine, which was basically one of my homeboys from my neighborhood, was killed. And the driver of the car was a female who was a known drug addict, a prostitute who traded sex for drugs with me and a bunch of my homeboys. I went to school with her, and she was infatuated with me, and she basically she used to drive me around town because I used to sell a little bit of dope here and there. So she would drive me around and make little transactions and stuff, but she was the driver, and she basically was up for a few days off of crystal meth, and just she was upset with me because at this house party I wasn't showing her no attention, and so basically she lied and said that I was the one who passed a weapon to one of my homeboys to kill my friend, and that I'm the one that encouraged it, which was a lie. Without too much detail, basically, so as we're driving, this argument ensues, and she ends up pulling over, and these dudes got out the car, and one of them pulled a pistol out on the other guy, and basically I stood between them trying to break them up, and one thing led to another, and he started shooting, and that's what happened. So as dudes get shot, I panic and jump in the car and try to tell her to take off, and that's kind of like how it unfolded.
How did you end up getting caught for this, sir? When did you end up getting arrested? How did you get arrested?
So what ended up happening was this girl, she got pulled over about 2 weeks after the crime happened, and basically they found dope on her. She was already on probation for drugs, already had her kids taken. She was a mess. And as she gets pulled over, she tells the cops, I could tell you a story about a murder if you let me go. So intrigued, the cops want to hear it. So she tells them a story about a murder, and never once does she mention my name. So they release her. They let her go. And they end up rearresting her because they find out that, yeah, she's true about the crime did happen, but they know she's not being honest about some of the facts. So they go and rearrest her. So she gives them another version of events that happened. Again, she never mentions my name.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
They finally detain her. And for that, and they keep pressing on her. So she gives a third story, and this time she mentions my name. So now that she mentioned my name, the cops, familiar with who I was, they're trying to work a deal with her. They tell her basically like, give up everything you can on this guy, and we're gonna let you go. And throughout the whole trial prosecution, they supported her and coerced her into into you know, giving up all kinds of information on me, and even to the point of making up lies about me. And so that's kind of what happened, how that played out. That's how I ended up getting accused of it in the first place. They raided my grandma's house right there in La Puente on Rama, looking for me. And they raided about 6, 7 other houses where my homeboys hung out, and they did a couple parole violations. They found money, guns, drugs, whatever, and so they never found me. I was kind of like on the run, and being so young, I was a little bit afraid, and I was basically, trying to figure out what my next step was going to be. Whether I was on parole, my parole officer was wanting me to come turn myself in. I wasn't sure what I was, whether I should have went to Mexico or what exactly, if it was the right thing to do to turn myself in to try to dispute. Yeah, I was just trying to figure things out, man. I was trying to figure out what my next step was going to be, and so about a month and a half after being on the run, I was down there in Rialto visiting family, and I got pulled over leaving this family member's house. Basically, I was under surveillance, didn't even know it. There was quite a few different task force that were came after me, and yeah, they arrested me. Helicopters, the SWAT team, the whole 9 yards, SSU, everybody, everybody was there, and yeah, they took me in. Yeah, initially they got me for parole violation. I was I had did a parole violation. So I had did like 6 years or something. I got out for about 2 weeks. I absconded from the gate. I did 10-month flat violation, paroled, and this crime happened about 3 weeks after I paroled. So, most of my teens and early 20s, all that was, I was incarcerated most of my life, over half of my life. So I was freshly out. So basically, before they were able to put their theory together, they knew they were able to hold me on a parole violation. So that's what they did. They got me on a parole violation until they were able to put a story together of what they believed and why they believed what they believed together.
And what was their story?
So basically, they at first they tried to say that the victim in the case, who was a neighborhood kid from around my neighborhood, that that I had to, he had asked to buy drugs in front of my grandmother, and that I got upset about it, and basically felt disrespected, and I wanted him dead for that. Which, I mean, anybody from the hood knows, like, that's kind of bizarre. You don't pull nobody's cap because they fucking, they're trying to buy some.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Yeah, so that was crazy. That was one of the versions they try to say. Later on, they began to say that my co-defendant, the person that got convicted with me, that he was actually having a relationship with the victim's baby's mom, and that it was over some jealousy, something to that effect, which was another flat out lie. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just they just try to spin their own little web together. Basically, they try to say that I was the shot caller, though, the one who called the shots to have that done, and the one who orchestrated it. And yeah, so I didn't get convicted of being the trigger man in the case. They said that basically I'm the one that orchestrated it and told this person to kill him.
Is there any truth to that effect?
No, there's no truth to that, man. Yeah, there's no truth to that. These dudes were a couple years younger than me, and in fact, my co-defendant had an alibi. He was at a motel party the night the night that this murder happened. He was at a motel party. He had countless people testifying on his behalf who were at the party with him, and yeah, he wasn't even there. He wasn't even there. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around how we even got convicted of this. When I mean, they took the testimony of a tweaker broad who was hallucinating because she had been up for a few days and admitted to taking like 30 hits of meth that night. But I guess her word was a little more concrete than ours must have been. But yeah, so there's no truth to that whatsoever, man. There's no truth to that whatsoever.
May I ask why they might assume that you were a shot caller in that neighborhood?
Well, it wasn't really a shot caller in that neighborhood, but basically they were trying to say that I was kind of like bossing everybody around. That I really don't know, man. I mean, a lot of people really respected me. Um, and like I said, I had just gotten out. I had been doing time, and had spent like most of my childhood behind bars, and so I kind of built somewhat of a reputation in here, and that's the only thing that I could think of. But basically, the way this girl tried to explain it is that I was the one dictating everybody's actions. As far as like who would be going like on that little errand that we went when we went to go get more alcohol. Is what led up to that crime. What the night it happened, but basically that I was the one dictating things, and these people were all a little bit younger than me, so yeah, I don't know. I have no idea why they would say that.
So how did you end up with the life without paroles? You took this to trial. They weren't offering you any type of deals. What did your
You have 60
and what
seconds
was your
remaining.
co-defendant sentenced to?
Yeah. So my co-defendant, like I said, he had a solid alibi. I don't understand how he or we got convicted. But basically, they offered him a deal, but they wanted him to testify against me. They offered me no deal throughout my whole no deal for me. They offered my co-defendant 15 years, but they wanted him to take the stand against me. And yeah, so from the beginning, they just wanted to nail me, man. They wanted me off the streets. They made it loud and clear. They basically told me that to my face. They're gonna do whatever they got to do to get me off the streets. And yeah, they sure did that. That's exactly what they did. But we took it to trial, and basically had no choice. I had to, but I convinced my co-defendant. Yeah, I basically didn't have a choice, and I had to take it to trial for the fact that they offered me no deal, and my co-defendant, they offered him 15 years. I basically convinced him to take it to trial with me. He couldn't take his deal without me signing, without me anyway. So it kind of like, unless he became a star witness for the prosecution, and he refused to do that. So yeah, we basically took it to trial, and I ended up getting life without parole. They got me for lying and awaiting, basically saying, like a lion attacks its prey, that I plotted it and that I just was waiting to pounce on the dude. Which, yeah, I don't understand how that happened either. He got life without parole
Oh
as
man.
well, but he got a little bit lesser time. We got life without plus. His was a bit lesser. Maybe like 10 years or something. But with me, I got strucken out, so I got 25 to life for that. I got 25 to life for ex-con discharging a firearm, which no gun was ever recovered in my case. But so I got life with that. I wasn't the trigger man. Didn't understand how that happened either. I got 10 years gang enhancements. Basically everything, anything they could throw at me, they did. Their whole thing was to wash me up, and that was their whole focus, was to do anything they could to put me behind bars forever, and that's what they did.
I'm assuming you barely being released from prison, they must have assumed that you come with plans, that you must have come from a structurized background, and you probably are.
Yeah, yeah, they did believe that. They did believe that. Um,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I came to prison when I was 16 years old. I came from youth authority, and I started off in Tracy. It's a prison kind of like a little bit up north and stuff, but basically, I was probably one of the youngest homies on the yard, and I basically was groomed. The whole mind frame of prisoners at the time, it was a different mind frame than what it is now. Um, Now it's a whole different environment, but back then you had older homies from your area. They basically took you in and they groomed you, embraced you. They taught you, what to do, what not to do, and things of that sort. And basically, so at a really young age, I kind of learned all this. And yeah, I was basically groomed and just and taught what was expected of me, not expected of me, and I kind of always had a vision of what I wanted my future to be, and so um, yeah, basically seeing people in the yard that were the most well respected individuals. I knew from early on that that is something that I wanted to aspire to become, and so at that time I started dabbling a little bit into politics, started learning the rules and regulations of what it was to be a South Sider in prison, and later on, a sureño and a soldier. And so when I was paroled, by that time I already had a little reputation, and a lot of people from different neighborhoods knew who I was, and I was okay with that. So yeah, I'm sure they believed that. They believed that I was out there to regulate shit. So it wasn't just at that prison that I just learned these things. I guess it's something that you have to live to learn, and it was just from lived out lessons. Basically, my journey from there, um, it's experiencing different things. There was a big riot that happened there, and a lot of us that participated in that riot, we were transferred to other prisons. And so it was at our next prison that you might learn another lesson or another lesson. Just that riot that transpired in Tracy that got me kicked out of there, that was a stepping stone for me. And I learned a lot from that itself. It was something that shouldn't have happened. And it was something that could have easily been resolved. And yeah, so, you just learn as time goes by, you start learning things about what's right, what's wrong, and learning how to deal with certain situations. And you become, well, it was the Southsiders. Yeah, it was the Southsiders against the white boys. And basically, I remember that day I was in education, and something transpired at education between a Southsider and a white boy. They had got into a fight over, I think it was a newspaper, something petty like that. And so, education that day, we had a half day. So, when we went back to our blocks, our housing unit, all the education was released, and I went back to my block. Um, Yard was still out there. And so, when we went back, a couple of homies from my area, um, they laced me up on what happened. Basically, all this happened in education, but they're going to talk about it at Yard right now. So just stay in and just stay in, keep back, and let them deal with it. So I was a bit confused at the time. You know, this is the first time I experienced like a big incident. I had barely been in prison no more than 7, 8 months, and I was confused about it. And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute, if there's something that might transpire, shouldn't we all be out there? Isn't it like our fucking moral duty to be out there to support our fellow homeboy? So I remember that day that my homies were trying to tell me to stay in, and I was like, nah, that just don't sit right with me. Um, so I changed it to my yard clothes, and I went outside, and I met up with about 20 something other Southsiders, and
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
all of us basically were white kickouts. Our first termers, none of us were over 25 years old. There was about 20 of us by the handball courts. There was about 60 something whites all grouped up on the other side of the yard. And there also was the supposed shot callers for the Southsiders on the yard. And they were off with older dudes, the older homeboys on the yard. There's about 15 of them. And they came up to us at the handball court and told us, hey, this is what happened in education. We talked to the whites, and it's a dead issue. So you guys got nothing to worry about. And so they left. They turned around and left. About 20 minutes later, it was yard recall. So as we were going back to our housing unit, all the whites came up behind us, and the older Southsiders were behind the whites. And basically all the whites jumped on us. They attacked us. And that's what happened. None of the older Southsiders got involved. They just basically watched that shit happen. And so, yeah, that's crazy. Right?
How is that even possible?
Yeah. Thinking back now, I don't know, but that's basically what transpired. You know, it opened my eyes to a lot of stuff, and it taught me. I learned from that. But we all went to the hole. I mean, there was probably 8, 9 dudes on each of us. It was a mess. And it went on for a while. So I was 17 years old at the time, and yeah. So we all went to the hole, and from there we were all transferred to other prisons. Yep.
Can you go ahead and continue on your journey, man? Explain to me what your prison like experience was like. Explain more on this grooming, on this setting up. Now you're serving a life without the possibility of parole, so now you don't care. Now you have nothing to lose.
So at the time, right? At the time that incident happened, where I was still learning stuff and whatnot. From there, I got transferred to Calipatria, and yeah, I got transferred to Calipatria. Coming from up north, I think it was about 96, 97 at the time, 1996 or 1997. Basically, yeah, from there to having life without parole, that's kind of like two separate things. Because at that time, I really thought about, being home often. And I had a childhood girlfriend that I had been with for a while and for quite a few years, since I was probably about 12 years old. So I did want to be home. I did think about getting out. And, but, being young and meeting a lot of young homies and all of us, all we ever aspired to do was put our names on the map. So we set out for that, We did whatever we had to do to earn that respect from other people, and basically wanting, to circulate our name and put our neighborhood on the map. You know what I'm saying? And that's kind of what motivated, I know for me for sure, to start getting involved in stuff in here. Was basically doing whatever I had to do to be a good soldier. And yeah, so That's basically what it was. So going to Calipat, I felt a little more seasoned because I came from up north. I've already experienced ag life. Um, I've already experienced, being involved in riots and stuff like that. So an opportunity had came where there was somebody in my block that had something coming, and and he had to be assaulted, and basically I was the one who rose my hand and wanted to do it, and I volunteered to do it. So yeah, I was ready to start. I was on my escapade to start kicking up dust in here. um, yeah, man, I can actually speak on a lot of that. Um, Not just from other people that other people created, but stuff that I created myself. You know, I've done a lot of things in here that I'm not proud of, and things that I regret morally, and just just based on a lot of decisions I made, whether it be me trying to impress people or trying to build a name for myself, or just everything that I've ever stood for in here. I have a lot of regret about that. I regret it. Um, but as far as like a political power struggle, something that you're asking about, I could speak to that on um, Calipatria, the prison Calipatria. I was um I was basically in charge of that prison, of establishing all the yards there on that prison, um, all the A, B, and C yards, the GP active yards. I established that by creating mesas on them yards, and I was an ad seg at the time, and I was the communication to Pelican Bay and to Corcoran Shoe, and basically um, there was there was somebody that tried to establish and assert themselves into that prison, and they actually did that by creating a big power struggle and removing everybody that I had established there and putting themselves there, and that created a big power struggle. And my role in the situation was that I fought and stood up for trying to keep and put back what I had established there from the beginning. And it was like a 3.5 year long process um, that I fought for what I stood for there. And I regret that wholeheartedly because a lot of people got hurt behind that. A lot of people were hurt, and a lot of homies got, stabbed. And yeah, it was just, I regret that. I regret that.
What are some of the decisions? What is some of the responsibilities that come behind these political struggles like this one?
Well, some of the decisions that some of the decisions that basically that you have to make is whatever stance or whoever you're representing in a power struggle like that, um, is basically to enhance and further that that basically that situation. That's what you do. So those are your responsibilities. The decision making is basically no matter what it is you're dealing with or what comes your way, you need to carry out your objectives. So whether that be having somebody stabbed, whether that be ordering somebody to get hit, or whatever the case is, that's what you got to do, to further your objective, whatever your objective is going to be. And so those are some of the things that come along with, being involved in politics. Being involved, it's kind of like playing football. Everybody's out there representing their own team, and that's what you do. You try to advance your team as furthest as you possibly can.
But you guys are all on the same side, though. Or supposed to be.
Well, it seems that way because we all play football. We all are from the NFL. We all represent the NFL. Yet there's different teams, and those teams are oppositions of one another, and that's kind of what being a Sureño is, a Southsider. Is basically we're all Southsiders, Sureños. We're all from Southern California. We all answer to one organization, but at the end of the day, there's different team captains and there's different teams. And that's kind of that's the best analogy I can give to break it down, you know?
Did you ever make it to become a team captain?
Um, so yeah, I went through the process. I went through a process and basically but on my way to where I was, to what I got to, I had to climb heavy mountain to do that. And so basically so basically what ended up happening was at the end I got voted out. I got voted out at the end. But
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
yeah, I made it to where I wanted to go, but it didn't last very long.
May I ask why? What was it that happened?
One of the deciding factors One of the deciding factors was that situation I explained to you in Calipatria, because I was in charge of that prison for over 10 years, and basically some of the brothers didn't like the fact that I was politicking against other members, and I was not a member at the time, and they weren't okay with that, and so yeah, that was the deciding factor to it all. So I was asked to just kick back for a little bit to basically let everybody get out of the shoe, because we were in the process of getting out of the shoe at the time for that Oscar settlement, and I give them a year, like a probation period, I guess you could say, and after that probation period to see where the chips fall. And basically, towards the end of that, I basically got wronged for it. I got wronged.
How does that affect you? How does that affect you mentally? How does that affect your psychology?
Yeah, I guess you could say it's a big kick to the ego, man. It's a big kick to the ego to be demoted, or to be sat down, or whichever way a person chooses to say it. There's different ways that people call that, whether it be put on ice, put on disregard, whatever it is, it don't matter. But basically, in any situation, when you're elevated to a certain level and then you're yet demoted again, it's never going to feel okay. It's never going to be okay. So, yeah, that's, and one of the things that struck me the most was that some of the people that I was the closest to, some of the brothers that I had worked for a long time and I was loyal to, they had an opportunity to speak up for me, and they chose not to. They chose not to speak up for me, and they basically left me out to hang. So I felt betrayed. I felt let down. And so, yeah, that's it. It taught me so much. That taught me so much about. That was the deciding factor that made me realize that, you know what, everything that these people ever taught me to believe in was basically a lie. And that's all it ever was, and all it's ever going to be is nothing but a bullshit lie. So yeah, that's basically that.
It's sad to see the amount of Hispanics, Latinos. I mean, every ethnicity that falls victim to the manipulation taxes, that falls victim to the brainwashing, that falls victim to the barrios. It to rob so many lives.
Yeah, that's true, and it's sad to see that. It's sad to see that because before everybody got out of the shoe, right? So you had a lot of people out here on the yards. Um, a lot of these people's never seen Mexican mafia members or Aryan Brotherhood members or NF members or none of that. So they idolized a lot of these people. Like some people thought of them as fucking superheroes, man. You know, like these were the guys that made shit happen. And in truth, these dudes were nothing but they were nothing but conniving and backstabbing people who only wanted to serve their own ends. And so, yeah, it's I don't know, it's just crazy. It's crazy. They basically manipulated everybody to get out of the shoe, and then became tyrants. They became tyrants. All they do is abuse their own people, victimize their own people, and that's one thing I learned. I knew that I didn't want to be a part of that train wreck, and that nah, I wasn't gonna fall victim to that shit. So that's my feelings on that. And a lot of people might not like the fact that I speak on this, and yeah, I get it because it's kind of like a no-no, but at the same time, I mean, this is my voice. This is me saying this, and these are my feelings about how I feel about it.
Do other people stand to gain anything when you get demoted, when you get brought down? Do other people benefit?
Yeah, other people benefit. I would say other other members do. Other members benefit because whatever it is that you had going on, they basically come up on that. You know, that'd be like, let's say you had somebody that was in charge of this specific area or in charge of these people. Well, without that boss being around anymore, everything's up for grabs. So yeah, the less cooks in the kitchen, the more a person's going to be able to get away with disguising the flavor and the taste of food as much as they can. You know, so that's yeah. Everybody around you benefits off that. Hello. Okay, here I am.
You said you were in LA County?
Yeah, when I was in the LA County Jail, I remember there was a dude there doing a violation, and I was in the gang module at the time. And when I was in the gang module, I was there with a couple of dudes from Avenues, and they didn't like one of their specific homeboys that was on the main line in the county jail. And so they basically lied and said this dude was no good, that he had paperwork on him, and which ended up becoming not the case at all. But they ended up finding this dude from a neighborhood called Lawndale who was basically on a violation, which is what, a year tops. And he thought it was a legit call, and basically it was a legit call, but the reasoning wasn't legit. And he went and damn near stabbed this dude to death and ended up picking up life for it. Turns out there was no paperwork on this guy, and basically, yeah, he just did it because that dude's own homeboys didn't like him. So that's an instance where I've seen somebody get used and manipulated for all the wrong reasons.
Wow. That's one crazy set of circumstances.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of heavy. Yeah, yeah, and I kind of regret that because I was the one who found the dude to do it, and campaigned basically like asking who will step up to the plate to take care of this. And being that it was coming from me, from the game module, and the other people that were around me, it seemed legit because I was one of the ones who was in charge of the game module at the time. So yeah, it's unfortunate. That's one of the situations that I ended up I later thought about a lot and learned to regret. One of the many, I should say. As to the analogy that I used, I would say that a football. I would say that the captain has. It's all financial, brother. It's all financial. At the end of the day, whatever that prison generating money or whatnot, it all comes down to that. You know, maybe their reputation, their name just being out there, them being spoken about, but basically it's all financial gain. Money's what motivates everybody, and it's what motivates the organizations. It's money, financial gain. You know, if you're in charge of this area and they're producing money, then you know that's you right there because everybody's kicking money up the ladder. So at the end of the day, whatever gets produced, it's like crops. Whatever crops are produced on your land, that's your income. So they have financial gain to that.
How much money do you think is accumulated on these lands?
Wow. So maybe I would say about 15 years ago, some circumstances depending if somebody's out there and they're able to run amok out there and collect personally, they're gonna make tens of thousands. But this day and age, with everybody squeezing those dispensaries, liquor stores, um, these little casitas where they got gambling and prostitution shit going on. Um, there's people now clocking in hundreds of thousands easily, hundreds of thousands. There's serious money involved now, serious money, and that's because everybody's out. Everybody's able to communicate with phones, and they got their hands directly involved in stuff now, and they're able to spread like a poison. They're able to spread their cancer, and so there's a lot of money to be made, man. A lot of money to be made.
So is it safe to say that perhaps some of these inmates, perhaps some of these team players, team captains, perhaps some of them might be millionaires?
Um, yeah, I would say close to it, man. I would say close to it. Um, there's a few that I personally know that are like well established. So I would say yeah. I would like to think so. Or I just feel the connection with.
As you stated that it's a lot easier for people to be able to conduct business now due to these cell phones and people being out actually on the general populations. Is it a lot
Right.
easier for people to be able to commit acts of violence
Yeah.
now or to have someone hit?
Oh, definitely, definitely. Just as it is to conduct business, yeah, it's a lot easier now. You know, because you got means of communication without the authority now. So yeah,
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
it's as easy as ordering a pizza. That's how easy it is. It's as easy as ordering a pizza now. So
Seems like there's a lot of people around you now, huh?
yeah, they're fighting.
Oh, there's a
There's
fight
a
going
fight right
on?
now. Yeah. I'm yeah, so I'm watching it.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
I'm watching it. I'm watching it and I'm rooting for the underdog.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's wild. A fight breaking out right here, right
yeah.
now. Yeah, I heard a
Can you
bunch of
hear it?
chaos. I heard a bunch of
Can you
chaos
hear it
erupting. I'm like, what
good?
the heck?
Yeah, yeah. Let me get out of the limelight before they start throwing grenades around. You know? But yeah, they put the yard down right now, so everybody's sitting down. I'm sitting on a milk crate now watching. All I'm missing now is my popcorn and soda pop.
Oh man, that's crazy. How many people are on the yard?
Yeah. Well, we're actually in the building, so we're in the day room right now. I'm inside the building. I'm on the top tier in front of my cell door, and a bunch of cops just ran in right now, and basically, the dude stopped fighting. They just thrown out already. So I think if it was another tower, they would have been busted already with a block gun. They would have shot already. But yeah.
Which prison
So
do you feel had the
yeah.
most amount of danger, the most amount of influence, the most amount of politics, the most amount of just heavy, heavy, heavy players?
Okay, so when I first came down from Pelican Bay, and we started this thing called the Step Down Program in Tehachapi Shoe, and there was about 15 of us. There was about 15. There was about 25 members total of all different organizations. So at the time, everybody was basically going in front of DRB and getting transferred out to different prisons. And a lot of people, as far as the Mexican mafia went, they were being housed in Centinela. So at the time, Centinela Sea Yard was kind of like, I'm not going to say headquarters, but there was probably about 11 members on the yard at the time. So that was like a lot. Now everybody's transferring to different places and stuff like that. So it's not really, you can't really say, you know. You might get 3 here on this yard, but they're kind of like just basically just minding their own business. You might get 2 over here, but one of them seems to have his hands involved in everything. So that kind of like it's kind of like a roller coaster. It goes up and down and it changes. Everybody's always getting transferred around and switched around. As far as violence, when I first got kicked out of the step down program out to the main line for the first time, I would say New Folsom had a lot of violence. It was probably about 4 killings there for the 2 years that I was there on B Yard. It was about 4 killings. Yeah.
Would you be able to tell me about the hunger strikes? From my understanding, you were there, you were present, you've seen it happen. How did it even start? What was it all about? And what was the experience like?
Well, as far as the hunger strikes, so one of the main things about them establishing the short corridor in Pelican Bay was the fact that one of the downfalls of it that sucked was that they basically created the short corridor, which was basically a few housing units that they made specifically for members from all different organizations. They rounded up everybody throughout the whole shoe and placed them in these specific housing units. What sucked about that was it was easier for them, the officers, to monitor everybody. They started putting us on mail restrictions, visiting restrictions, monitoring our mail, just making communication hard. And plus, everybody around us was under investigation. It wasn't like there was one member in a pod with just a few associates where we're able to utilize them.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
So that's what sucked about it. The positive thing about it was that we were all able to get on the same page, and we were able to share ideas and stuff like that. What created the hunger strikes was that things were constantly getting worse and worse for everybody. You know, the living conditions, the meal restriction, the visiting restriction. Basically, it was a place of torture, and it was it was breaking people's spirits, breaking their minds. That place was designed to break people, man. Without natural sunlight, no contact with other human beings. Um, it was just a hard place to live through. We had no personal property. We were living in t-shirt and boxers for some people 2-3 decades. You know, mine luckily was only 16 years, but it was still it was.
You had just mentioned to me
Can you hear me?
Folsom. You said that there was four
Yeah.
murders in the 2 years that you were there. Would you be able to explain to me, Folsom, man? What was the environment like, man? Who was there? What was the air like? And what were these murders about, man? That's pretty scary. That's happening so often.
Well, Folsom. Yeah, yeah. Basically, that all of that was that all boiled down to one race, and it was the whites. The whites, they weren't playing around over there, man. They were the ones that were basically, you know, they wanted to send a strong message, and that's exactly what they did. So, you know, there was a couple Aryan Brotherhood dudes there, but they basically wanted to send a message to the people that you fuck up, you're gonna pay the piper for it, and that's basically what happened. So, the reasons were different, you know. Dudes who were involved, getting high and being in debt and stuff like that, who weren't supposed to be. Um, yeah, those were the consequences to that. One of the incidents was somebody stealing. They were given a package to take to the back with them to the hole. So somebody back there, and they dipped into it. So yeah, that was the piper. They had to pay for that. But basically, all of that bounded up to just being the whites. The atmosphere was cool. I liked Folsom. I was on B yards. It was pretty cool. We only had 3 buildings that were mainline. The rest were basically EOP buildings. We didn't really interact with those blocks. We didn't come out with them. So there was only Southerners, blacks, and the whites there. There were no Northerners on our yard. Um, so I liked it. I liked Folsom. It was a good place. It was a good place. Um, yeah, with Mosca. That's yeah. I've heard a little bit about it. I was in the LA County Jail when I found out. I found out maybe a day later, but yeah, I'm aware of it, and yeah, Mosca, man, that guy was a tough pill to swallow. That dude was a tough pill to swallow. The only thing I can say to that is basically you reap what you sow, and you know you reap what you sow, man. So he yeah, he had that. That was a long time coming, sadly to say, man. But that dude was a tyrant if I've known one. You know, that dude
You
was a
actually got to
tyrant,
know him.
man. So I'm pretty sure a lot of yeah, yeah, I knew him really well. I'm pretty sure a lot of people gave standing ovations to that. But yeah, I know him personally. Yep. I was in the same block and pod with him for a while as well. So um, well, I really don't keep tabs. I really don't keep tabs out there no more the way I once did. Um, basically, I'm kind of like dormant now out there. Um, yeah, I have very little communication to anybody out there, and so I really couldn't be too specific on that. I really don't associate with nobody out there anymore, and nor do I really have. I don't even have family in Puente anymore. I was thinking about that the other day. How ironic is that? I basically gave my life to to a city that I have no ties to anymore. I got no family there, nothing there no more. So, yeah, that place is just nothing but a distant memory to me now. You know?
Well, it's crazy because you're serving a life without the possibility of parole. So it's very unfortunate, and I hate to even say it, but you may never even see it again. You may never see that city again.
Exactly. Yeah, I have no family there, no ties there. I communicate with nobody down there, and I don't ever plan to go back to that city again. So, yeah.
Do you have any positive message, any last advice for anybody out there before we end this part one segment?
Well, I guess, I guess, I guess maybe what I would probably say would probably be, one of the hardest things, I guess, um, when I was young and like really at awe of like people in prison and big homies and jailhouse politics and stuff like that would be that I felt like a lot of people tried taking the time for me out of the gang life and away from all the craziness that the gang life brings.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
For me was that I felt like the people preaching to me weren't really people that I could relate to. Like they didn't understand what I was going through, or they never been there and done that for them to be preaching about what's right or what's wrong. And in reality, the reality of it all is that this, that gang life leads to nowhere, because at the end of the day, like, let this be the perfect example of how I have no ties to the city no more, no friends down there, nothing down there anymore, and yet I'm serving a life sentence for something, even a cause that I no longer believe in anymore. And so, the moral of the story is that all that stuff doesn't pay, man. It doesn't pay. It doesn't pay. The gang life don't pay. And, it's just a waste of life, a waste of time. And, if I could help a kid, like, steer away from the gang life or anything like that, then I would feel blessed about it. I would feel like I actually done something positive and maybe a little bit to right some of the wrongs I've done in life. And, I guess I would just say that, all that stuff just isn't worth it. And to take it from somebody who actually knows and been there and done that, that would probably be the best thing that I could possibly say.
Man, it was a great pleasure to be able to have you on the show, man. I sincerely appreciate you opening up and sharing these words of wisdom. This will be part one. For anybody out there who has any more questions to ask my friend here, we are definitely going to be having him for a part two and perhaps a part three. So please drop a comment in the comment section. Once again, sir, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, man. I appreciate it, and it was a pleasure.
Man, the pleasure was
Always
all
a pleasure,
mine, man. Thank you, sir.